I've been on and off planes for, must be over a day now. And I've been through 2 nights, I think, and I haven't slept in either of them. It's a heck of a long way to Papua New Guinea. In fact, it's just north of Australia. There's Australia, that way round. Just north of Australia, and it's just south of the equator. That's the equator. So that's Papua New Guinea, that's where I am. And of course, I've come here bird watching. Like all bird watchers, I like to get one big holiday into every year. And 10 years ago, maybe I would have got away to Norfolk or Shetland. 5 years ago, it might have been a little bit more adventurous. I would have got down to the Camargue or maybe Mallorca, something like that. But nowadays, bird watchers get absolutely everywhere. Go to India, Siberia, or as far as here, Papua New Guinea. See, the world gets smaller, checklists get bigger. Actually, I have seen birds of paradise before, but only on the television, so that doesn't count. These are the star birds of Papua New Guinea, with names like the superb bird of paradise and the magnificent bird of paradise. And indeed, they are superb, and they do look magnificent. Here's another one, the magnificent rifle bird. All birds of paradise are famous for their amazing displays, their dazzling colours and their extravagant feathers, and I would love to see them. But I've always rather assumed that these films were shot by a cameraman who spent ages crouching in a hide in the middle of uncharted jungle, not only to film birds of paradise, but also the famous bowerbirds. Now, I've only got 2.5 weeks, so what are my chances? What I always do when I come to an area with completely new birds is have a little ramble in the local parks and gardens, which actually is where I am now. But down here by the town, it's very, very dry, not at all like the luxuriant rainforest, which I'm sure is somewhere over there. I've not seen very many birds, but there is something over here I've been told to look out for, so let's hope I find it. What I didn't know was that bowerbirds exist at the bottom of the garden. I thought I'd really have to go searching for these, but apparently no, they live in New Guinea gardens, although they're a little unkept as gardens go. This is obviously the bower. Moment of genuine discovery, this. I haven't seen it before. Extraordinary to think the bird actually built this. It's amazingly solid, very symmetrical. It looks like something, I don't know, you buy at a garden centre or something. Or a little shrine, perhaps, a man-made shrine. Very symmetrical. Little squiggly green bits here, little squiggly green bits there to match, and a little squiggly green bit bed in the middle there, and some berries here that I suspect the bird might be back to rearrange. I hope so. It's a dull bird, I think compensating for the fact that it looks rather like a scrawny chicken, so it builds this amazing bower to make up for it. I'm going to hide now and hope that it's going to come back and carry on the work. And here it comes, protesting at me calling it a scrawny chicken. Be honest, though, it's not very impressive. The bower is. And that's the idea. Now, this is the male, and he's building a bower and decorating it to impress the female. It's not a nest. If the female is impressed, then she'll show her appreciation by visiting the male in the bower and mating with him. And each species of bowerbird builds its own particular style of bower, as I'm hoping to see eventually. This one is called a fawn-breasted bowerbird because it's got a fawn breast. That's a good, easy tick. So, how about birds of paradise? Well, looks like these fellas are wearing them. I do know a fair number of New Guinea birds, or their feathers at least, end up on ceremonial headdresses. Oh, and I also know pigs are a sign of wealth. They don't treat their money very well, do they? This sing-sing, which is another thing I'd hope to see in Papua New Guinea, I figure I can also break myself in gently by studying some of the feathers on the headdresses. Now, what I need is an interpreter, who is also, preferably, a bird expert. And I find one, appropriately called Brian Finch, who also speaks pidgin English. That can't be bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Am I all right?
Yeah, me all right.
Thank you, true.
So we've got permission, right?
Yes, it's
So
okay.
I'm going to start a checklist of birds I see people wearing. So you start me off. Tell me what we have here.
Okay. The 5 birds on the top are little red lorikeets.
Which I've seen yet or not? No, I don't think so.
No. These occur in the hill forest where they occur around flowering trees.
Right.
Now, down here, we've got the King of Saxony bird of paradise.
Those feathers are from where on the bird?
These are from the head. 2 protrude from the back of the head, and they wave them around like semaphore.
And in the centre, a pièce de résistance, it must be.
No, you're not wrong there. This is the Reggiana bird of paradise, which is still a common bird in the lowlands and hill forests around here.
So you can guarantee we'll be seeing one of those where it belongs live.
I can guarantee.
Now, Brian promised me I was going to see Reggiana bird of paradise here. And the problem being in the jungle in the morning, I can hear lots of noises. If I were in England, I could identify them. Here, I haven't a clue what I'm hearing, but there's one noise which, fortunately, I might recognise. And that's because I watch a lot of David Attenborough programmes. And it's this sort of weird... Wah, 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 wah. There it is. That was incredibly on cue. And that's the noise of the bird of paradise. And it's pretty good on television, but live, it's unbelievable. And those feathers suddenly fluff up like a great big sort of pink powder puff, and the wings tremor and shiver on the back. There seems to be one sort of dominant male in the middle, and is showing off and challenging the rest, you know, saying, "Cop this, boys, see if you can match it." That's a great start. I've only been here 2 days, and already I've seen my first bowerbird and my first bird of paradise, both not in impenetrable jungle, but now to the swamps for something much more difficult. Sound is the key to this one, and Brian is helping me again. Now, this is called pishing.
Coming out.
One way of attracting birds is to pretend to be one yourself.
Yeah. Is that 12-wired bird of paradise calling there? Can you call that up?
12-wired bird of paradise. The wires are its tail feathers. And we only get a glimpse of this very special bird of paradise, my second species. And I'd like to see a lot more of it. But in the meantime, we tackle kingfishers. There are 24 species in Papua New Guinea. Now, this is a kingfisher with some very unfish-like prey. In fact, many kingfishers live deep in the forest, well away from water. Well, Brian seems confident that he'll be able to call up the 12-wide bird of paradise later, so for the moment, I get a guided tour of a world which I must admit, as a bird watcher, I often tend to ignore. And I shouldn't really, because insects are often easier to see than birds. These are water striders, skating around here and catching prey in the New Guinea jungle, much the same way as they do on English ponds and streams. Now, what else can we see? What's that? That's not an insect, it's another flipping bird. Some kind of rail, New Guinea version of our moorhen. So secretive. Mind you, I said insects were easy to see, but I still need to get my eye in, especially when they're camouflaged. Now, this is a looper caterpillar about to turn into a twig. What's this? Ah, a fluff bug. Now, this one seems to be hiding under a pile of dead bits of other insects. And this is a tree frog, looking like part of a tree. And this is a spider looking like part of a tree trunk. An ant pretending to be a praying mantis. And another spider, but this time looking like a scorpion. You see, all these little creatures are working on the principle that if you disguise yourself as something unpalatable, you won't get eaten. This is a butterfly, pretending to have great big googly eyes, and it's called an owl butterfly. Nothing eats owls. It's feeding on fruit growing not from a branch, but from out of the trunk of the tree. The juice attracts beetles and ants. Now, there's an awful lot going on down here. Now this isn't a transistorized New Guinea loo brush, it's a big furry caterpillar. Birds are still difficult to see though, even great big ones. This is a cassowary. It can't fly, so it tiptoes through the jungle. And the fruit attracts him too. Listen, there's that call again. The 12-wired bird of paradise is back. You can hear that call, which I'm going to have a go at myself, see if it'll answer. It's not too... Yeah, there you go. That's the 12-wired bird of paradise. This is a historic moment. I've not only got a picture of it, I'm hearing it, it's talking to me. And I might well just have become one of the few British bird watchers to ever see this bird. Good day. I can just see the wire sprouting from the tail. But that's a female, and she doesn't have wires. Now, obviously, whatever the male's doing is beginning to interest her. So let's get a bit closer and look for those wires. There they are. You see them? 6 on each side. They're actually feathers without the feathery bits, as it were. Different species of birds of paradise may look very different, but most of them do have something in common. They have a traditional display tree, or small number of trees, which they sometimes use for years, which makes it easier for me, because if I find a tree and wait, then eventually I should see the bird. Also, most birds of paradise have pretty elaborate displays, but some species, like those Ragianas I've seen, display communally, whilst others... Oh, mustn't forget to keep shooting. They always move just when I'm... Whilst others are... Oh, and again. Whilst others are a bit more private, one male and one female. Now, so far, I've been down in the lowlands at sea level, and I've seen 2 different birds of paradise and 1 bowerbird. Now, if I want to see any more, I'm going to have to go higher, because particular species live at particular altitudes. And the best way to get up there, because there are very few roads crossing New Guinea, is in a tiny little plane, flying in and out of the mountains with the pilot peering down through the treetops. Matter of fact, it's all a bit hairy, and in fact, I'm quite relieved to be back down in the jungle. Not that bird watching is very easy down here. Low down, it's ever so dark, and way up at the top, it's blindingly bright. But I'm sure I can hear my first parrots. Yep, there they are. You know, we're so used to seeing these birds in cages or zoos, it's quite hard to imagine they do exist in the wild at all. In fact, across the world, the parrot family is one of the most numerous, but it's getting less so, because every year many thousands of them are being taken illegally from the wild and smuggled to cage bird dealers and collectors. Well, seeing them here like this surely reminds us this is where they belong. Of all the 46 species of parrot found here, this is the strangest. It's the vulturine parrot, not a pretty sight really, but with an appropriate beak for climbing, eating, and possibly seeing off another local speciality, a tree python. I'm not sure a tree python would attack a big ugly bird like that, really. But it's not waiting to find out. Walking in the jungle, you do tend to keep looking up. But if you do, you'll miss things right down there under your feet. Not that I know what on earth this lot is. Blueberries. Yellow berries. And little yellow flowers. Orange berries. all arranged in a neat little avenue leading to... now this has got to be the work of another bowerbird, and if I thought the last one was a dreary-looking little thing, how about this one? But the principle seems to be, the duller the bird, the more elaborate the bower. This is the gardener bowerbird, a name which could apply to any of them, really. So maybe this one should be renamed the blue cartridge collecting bowerbird. A bit worrying, all those cartridges. There must be a lot of shooting round here. At this higher altitude, the villagers do hunt birds and pigs. And of course, they know the jungle intimately. And they know where to find the bowerbirds' bowers and the birds of paradise display trees. And happily, they willingly show them to me, which of course makes bird watching a lot easier. This is the blue bird of paradise, hanging upside down to show his tail feathers to good effect. Listen to that noise. It's like something made by a synthesizer. She doesn't look awfully impressed, does she? Well, I suppose she's seen and heard it all before. OK, that's another bird of paradise and another bowerbird. Now, I have heard there's a bowerbird that not only builds an amazing bower, but looks pretty good too. McGregor's bowerbird. But to see that, I'm going to have to climb even higher. But this time, there is no plane to take me there. Undoubtedly one of the nastiest walks I've ever been on in my life. I've been going up now for about 2.5 hours, sliding over tree roots and mud that's like ice, and it's been raining most of the way up, but there's no point at all in putting on a waterproof because it's wet and suffocates. Nasty way to go. Oh, it's almost stopped now, but it's still misty and the trees are just dripping. It's like going for a tramp through a giant car wash or something. And the really stupid thing is, I'm supposed to be coming up here bird watching. I haven't seen a single bird all the way up. Probably a good thing. If I got my binoculars out, they'd just missed up. It's honestly, at times like this, I just wonder, is it worth it? If I see a dodo, perhaps it is. Actually, if I see anything at all up here, I shall not only get a new tick on my checklist, I shall have qualified for a Duke of Edinburgh award. Only hope he's watching. But I soon got my breath back and got down to having a good look round. And I must admit, for the rest of the morning, I didn't see a thing. In fact, I broke my own personal record. How long can I be out bird watching without seeing a bird? 3 hours I went. And I was looking. However, I did see these, 2 rather handsome possums, who are apparently having as much trouble finding food as I am finding birds. You see, the trouble is, in a wet world like this, most insects and grubs tend to shelter away, and they'll need digging out. And that's when it comes in very useful to have a long claw like that. That's what it's for, digging out grubs. Not that he seems to be finding any. And there's still no birds either. Now it sounds like there's a tribal war starting. You hear that? Machine gun? No, it's a bird. At last, a bird of paradise, with a bill shaped like a sickle and called a sicklebill. And, as well as at least one bird, there are people up here. Melinda Pruitt-Jones is studying the elusive McGregor's bowerbird, which is what I want to see. Now, so far, she's shown me a partially built bower. I think even I would have spotted this one.
Yes, well, this is a little more complex structure and built by an older man.
Right. You implied that the adult has a crest. So, but what size is this bird that's doing this?
Well, it's about the size of a thrush or medium-sized one, anyway.
About that big?
It's very drab body plumage, almost the color of its own bower.
This maypole bower in the gloomiest part of this soaking jungle really makes up for the apparent drabness of its maker. Melinda knows the birds individually, and she studied how they decorate the bower with bits of fungus. Round the maypole, which is built of tightly woven sticks, is a moat of moss, which they always keep clean and tidy. Other males in nearby territories spend their time keeping watch or feeding, but several times a day they return to the bower to add to it, or maybe to do a bit of housework. Often, palm leaves are part of the outside of the moat. And now he's hoping to attract a female with his extraordinary song. And it's worked. The song and the maypole have proved irresistible to a possible mate. And now he's got another trick up his sleeve, or rather under his hat. In the gloom of the forest, in the early morning or late in the day, the McGregor's bowerbird does its thing, because it's in these murky conditions he can really show off his crowning glory. He literally glows in the dark. Well, the highlight of the trip so far, if you'll pardon the expression, which brings my checklist so far up to 3 species of bowerbird and 3 different birds of paradise, plus lots of other new stuff. I've been in New Guinea for only just over a week, but already I've seen over 200 new species. Many of them very beautiful and many of them rather bizarre. I've also been through all sorts of different habitat. Much of it also very beautiful and much of it also extremely difficult. But has it been worth it? Of course it has, especially now the sun's come out. So, I'm off going higher. I do hope the Duke of Edinburgh is watching.
And the enthusiastic Bill Oddie returns tomorrow in feathers with birds attached. Plastinot's next, and be sure to catch Country GP at 12 o'clock here on ABC.
Just before dawn in Papua New Guinea, a fabulous country for wildlife. A tree frog coming to the end of its nighttime activity. And a frog mouth, another nocturnal creature, slowing down as it begins to get light. I've been here for 2 weeks now, and I've seen over 200 different species of birds. Mostly I've been in deep, dark, dense tropical rainforest, where there are lots of birds, if you can see them. But today I'm looking forward to something completely different. It's funny that the day begins just as it's getting light, with birds coming in to sleep, and they're not owls. These are night herons, and they've been fishing out there, and now they're jostling away in the tops of the trees, trying to get roosting places, sounding like a bunch of demented chickens. Heck of a row going on. But as the night herons come in, let's call them normal herons, are going out. And they're going to the rivers and the marshes out there to do their fishing. And as it's getting light, I'm going to follow them. That's where I'm going to go. in Papua New Guinea often don't make it very easy on the bird watchers, because an awful lot of them live way up there in the hill forest where it's dark and it's damp and it makes them very hard to see and almost impossible to photograph. But fortunately there's one area, it's down here back at sea level, and it's a great floodplain where those mountain rivers sort of open up towards the sea. And here you can watch birds in tremendous profusion and quite elegant luxury. It's a wildlife reserve. Brian here is the manager, and it's called Bensback. The Bensback River is liberally lined with trees on this, the last part of its journey from the mountains down to its estuary. And it's also the last part of my journey in Papua New Guinea. But there's still 20 or 30 or so miles to go before I and the river eventually reach the sea. As it gets to the flatter ground, it meanders in huge snaky loops, and in the wet season, it'll flood a vast area, including forest and grassland. As the waters recede again in the dry season, the rich, muddy edges attract all sorts of wildlife, and that is what I am hoping to see. Now, one of the splendid things about many water birds is that they are nice and big and conspicuous, and none more so than pelicans. These are Australian pelicans, sitting around and gliding about way out in the open in nice bright sunlight, all of which makes them wonderfully easy to photograph. As we cruise along, bird-watching in almost embarrassing luxury, my only complaint is that so far nobody has invented binoculars with built-in slow motion. And it's not only birds that pose for the camera. You can tell from its dappled green skin that this monitor lizard belongs down in the dappled green water. So he must be feeling a bit of a pranny stuck up a pole. The river soon widens out, and the countryside becomes much more open with only scattered clumps of trees. This is a fish's eye view of a fish eagle from our languorous viewpoint in the boat below. But now it's time to make a bit more of an effort and actually walk. A willy wagtail, that's its official name, willy wagtail, is mobbing the fish eagle, if you can be mobbed by one bird. Some eagles do feed on birds, but this species normally goes for something more appropriate to its name. But not always successfully. But there are plenty more fish here, and at this time of the year, as the river dries out, their numbers are concentrated, and inevitably the weaker ones die off and provide a nice, easy meal for the crows, who are notoriously lazy when it comes to finding food. And the monitor lizard is on the scent too, flicking out its tongue. And that eagle is still hungry, but will he lower himself to that? Well, the monitor lizard definitely fancies it, because it's dead and he doesn't have to hurry to catch it, all of which is enough to make the eagle feel it just might taste better than he thought. Yeah, not bad at all, really. On the other hand, it is definitely not tasty enough to argue over with a lizard. Okay, let him have it. He looks like a puppy who's just pinched a piece of steak off the table. In fact, he looks as though he's enjoying it very, very much. You know, you always want what's on somebody else's plate, don't you? And the eagle can't resist it. Yeah, you can have it. It's all bones anyway. Be honest, it's no big deal for a great big savage bird like that to nick a smelly old dead fish off a waddly little lizard. It is impressive if you catch your own fish like fish eagles are supposed to. Now here's his mate to show him how. Yeah, now that's the way to do it, even if it is half the size. There are pairs of fish eagles all along the river every few miles, and the food supply can easily support this large population. And other animals benefit too. There are freshwater crocodiles who drift along impersonating floating logs. Or lie out on the riverbank looking as if they're stuffed. But when they want to, they can half shift, especially when I try to get close enough to get a decent look at them. And that was in slow motion. It's just like the Tarzan movies, isn't it? Compared with deep in the jungle, everything down here is so wonderfully visible, and there's so much of it. Cormorants and egrets cascading out of the trees. Pelicans lumbering along by the boat and heaving themselves up into the air. And up above us, whistling kites hovering over the river like kestrels over a motorway. It's all too easy. Right, enough of this luxury. This isn't proper bird watching. We've seen quite a lot of birds, but understandably, an awful lot of them have been flying ahead and away from us as we've gone along the river. So we're now going to transfer to some more rugged and appropriate butch transport, which we have here, and we're going to head out across those plains to Secret Waterhole, which I gather is absolutely covered in birds, which I personally can't wait to see. So, Ryan, drive on, please. It's like Africa all of a sudden. There's deer out there. There are indeed deer, thousands of them, but they don't really belong here. These are rusa deer, which were introduced from Indonesia in the 1920s. There's nothing a stag enjoys better on a hot day than a good wallow in a mud bath. And just as the men in New Guinea wear elaborate headdresses, so do the deer, and for the same reason, to compete with other males and impress the ladies, who in this case are clearly not impressed at all. Might as well take it off then. I wish I'd never bothered with it. Oh, surely someone fancies me. Try again. Playing hard to get, eh? Oh, I don't know, though. Apparently, some ladies are impressed hat approach, whilst others prefer the fellas to fight over them. And may the best stag win. Of course, this sort of macho show-off display is much more masculine. Mind you, if he does find a mate after this, I'm afraid it might be a case of, sorry dear, I've got a headache. Sorry dear. That's enough of that. I must admit, I'm rather glad of the taxi service, as on we go in search of this secret waterhole, trundling across a vast rolling plain that looks as flat and as smooth as a cricket pitch, until you drive over it. Ooh. And just to remind us how close to Australia we are, there's wallabies bouncing out of the way as we rattle along. Like the deer, there are thousands of them. And, like the deer too, they crop the grass short and help to maintain the savannah. Ben's Back is a huge and largely undisturbed sanctuary for wildlife, and that's why there are so many deer and so many wallabies. But what I've really come here to see, of course, are the masses of birds. And this open grassland, maintained by the animals and enriched by regular seasonal flooding, provides ideal conditions, especially at the waterholes. Oh, must be... oh, look, over 600, getting on for 7 at least, 700 royal spoonbills out there. Those are North Australian birds, really, down here in South New Guinea, in a place that looks like a strange cross between an African plain and an English deer park. Let's see if we can get any closer. Right, let's see. Turn the tripod upside down and might look like antlers. They'll think I'm a deer. Not that I'm competing, don't worry. Oh, no, calm down, you'll scare them away. These birds have come up from Australia because down there, where they breed, just a few hundred miles south, the dry season is just that bit ahead. And it's quite a bit drier. Very, very dry some years. But conveniently, just as conditions down there are getting too tough, they are perfect up here. A few hours flying north and they arrive at Ben's Back to find lots and lots of lovely food and me waiting for them. These wet patches, either on the grassland or in the woods, vary each year depending on how wet or dry the season is. And in fact, the whole area is constantly changing, both in the short and long term. Pigs, like the deer, have also been introduced into this area, and they're changing the landscape too in their own particular way. They snuffle around, churning up the mud, which exposes even more food for the water birds, to whom Ben's Back surely really belongs, be they ibises, or herons, or waders, like these wattled plovers. These handsome birds are really the down-under cousins of European lapwings, and they're just as numerous and just as noisy. By the way, that's the wattle round its face, that yellow mask. It's the bird's grow-your-own equivalent of the stag's straw hat, meant to intimidate rivals and impress potential mates. An alternative name for them is a winged plover, and here you can just see the spurs, those little yellow spikes sticking forward at the shoulder. Plovers have relatively short, stubby beaks for picking around on the surface, whilst other waders have long, thin beaks for probing right down under the water and into the mud. And sometimes they have long, thin legs to match. Now, if you didn't know these birds' name, you might well have a guess. They're black and white with legs like stilts, right? Well, they're called pied stilts. Good name, I'd say. Even if it is a bit literal for such a stately bird. And here's a pack of stilts enjoying an afternoon snooze. Until this appears, a whistling kite, which does whistle, sort of quite a cheery sound really, but nobody trusts a bird of prey. And everybody panics. Actually, the kite's a lazy feeder, a bit of a scavenger, and no way would he chase a flight of stilts. Oh, by the way, they're sometimes called by another name. Any guesses? Black-winged stilts. Fair enough? So how about these? Cormorants, small, black and white. little pied cormorants. A heron or egret, big and white, a great white heron or egret, whichever you prefer. And these look like tiny little geese. Well, that's right, they're called pygmy geese. You see, bird watching is wonderfully logical, sometimes. This is called a jacana, or lotus bird, or my favourite, lily trotter. Mind you, whatever it is he's feeding on here, it's certainly not lilies. And I wouldn't call that trotting either, more like schlumping. So what does that make him? A mud schlumper? Now, what else? Ah, yes. Now, this is an easy one. A pied heron. If Bensback has a sort of national bird, as it were, it has to be these, the pied herons, because some years they come up here from Australia in truly vast numbers. Sometimes there are literally tens of thousands of them, and every one a spruce little gem, sparkling clean and positively dainty. Which is more than I can say for this old lumberer. A bird which actually lives right across the old world. In Europe they're called purple gallinule, in New Zealand pukeko, which sounds rather romantic, and here swamp hen. And now onward and further downstream, where there are still a few trees, but where the grassland gets more and more desolate. An ideal habitat for another Australian visitor. Grolga cranes. These are big birds, nearly 5 foot tall, almost as big as me. But of course, they dance differently. Oh, I don't know that. These cranes don't actually breed here in any numbers, but the sun is so stimulating that they really can't resist putting on the sort of display that has made them the stars of nature films from Walt Disney to David Attenborough. Now, what exactly is he doing? Is he offering her bits of nesting material, hoping she'll get the hint? Or perhaps it's a sort of crane engagement present, a nice romantic lump of muddy grass. These are heavy birds, and they've got a wingspan of over 6 feet, so no wonder taking off is a bit of an effort. But once they're up, they are majestic. Now, way in the distance across the marsh, I'm sure I can hear geese. Yep, there they are, magpie geese, just arrived from Australia, and obviously they're going to be pretty jumpy. This is one of the most memorable sights of my 2.5 weeks in Papua New Guinea. And it has been a pretty fantastic trip. I've seen something like 250 different species of birds. Lots of them completely new to me, including 4 different bowerbirds and 14 different birds of paradise. And yet, this moment has a special magic. Oh, yes. Whether it's in Southern Ireland, Scotland, California, or New Guinea, the thrill is always the same. A sky full of wild geese. It's at times like this, bird watching makes the world seem ever so small. Just hope my pictures come out.